Welcome back to our training series on recruiting the next generation of crime fighters. And thanks again to Safeguard Recruiting to their commitment to providing law enforcement with the resources and tools needed to properly staff our law enforcement agencies and ultimately protect our communities. Most leaders, recruiters, and anyone involved with police recruiting are extremely frustrated. Never in law enforcement's history has so much effort and so much money been dedicated to recruiting, but the results have been less than optimal. The first hurdle that an agency has in their recruiting efforts is to actually evaluate if what they are doing is working. And this can be especially tough if someone has championed a certain tactic or approved the funds to recruit, or they're trying to keep their boss happy. But it's important to not only throw resources at the issue, but actually evaluate whether it's actually working. And the only measurement on whether your recruiting efforts are working is the number of recruits you are getting. I've spoken to hundreds of agencies over the last few years in my training seminars, and there's no shortage of efforts, both new and old, to recruit, and I applaud those agencies. One agency sends a recruiter in a car, they go all over the country to universities and schools. Another agency spent thousands of dollars on billboards and even at the bus stop. Many others are using an ad agency to advertise online, but there's always one important thing missing in my conversations with them. Do those efforts actually work? Well, they clearly don't, because they're still struggling to recruit. But in law enforcement, we have a bad habit of admitting that we may be wrong or that something may not be working. And nothing has been more clear about our failure than our efforts to reach potential candidates on the line. In fact, every agency that has reached out to me has expressed confusion and frustration as to why they have not been able to solve the recruiting issue through their online campaigns. And they should be frustrated, because they're spending a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of resources on it. So I want to explain why your online campaigns may not be working. Number one, traditional advertisement agencies have no idea what is actually needed to attract police recruits. I don't mean this in a negative way, but it's simply the truth. There are plenty of companies taking our money, but do they really know our industry? If your results, which only can be measured in applicants, are not there, it's likely the advertising company using a cookie cutter approach without addressing the specific issues that must be addressed in law enforcement. And when you think about it, how could a traditional advertising company outside of law enforcement actually succeed, right? I mean, very few companies could jump to a completely different industry very quickly and have success, especially one like ours that's become as difficult as it is in attracting applicants for law enforcement. Number two, it's not about a website or a fancy video. I've mentioned this before, but it bears repeating because I've seen so many agencies spend so much money, even up to hundreds of thousands of dollars, on this topic. A lot of advertising agencies are pushing for fancy website design or the coolest videos, and while that's nice to have, and it really is, I like it, it just has nothing to do with police recruiting. It makes the companies a lot of money, and you must ask what the return on investment is, right, if you're going to spend it. How many recruits did you get for the money and effort spent? Let's be real here. The bosses at the department may like those cool things, and your officers may brag about the website, and I like it too, but it's just not recruiting. There's some very specific items that potential recruits look for in an agency, and if you ask them, I don't think a website or a tactical cool video is going to be on the list. Of course, you should have a great online presence, but as I said earlier, that's marketing and not recruiting. Number three, it's not about clicks, it's not about hits. This is probably the biggest scam being told to police agencies from firms that are making a ton of money helping them recruit. To justify the continuous ad spend, the agency will be giving data that shows their web traffic or the recruiting page got more clicks or views, but once again, that's not recruiting. Listen, you can give me $1,000 a day and I can take $200 of that and I can spend it on social media advertising. Considering social media companies prohibit targeting job advertisements by age, who knows if the clicks or hits are even eligible or interested in becoming a police officer? And if you want to know why the traditional advertising firms may not be telling you that or willing to take your money, well, where does the other $800 go, right? Once again, I'm fine with this, but we have to understand this is not recruiting. But in a desperate environment such as law enforcement recruiting, we sometimes count that as a win. On a good day, I may call that marketing, but unless you receive more applicants, it's not recruiting. Number four, we must evaluate and adjust our recruiting efforts. Whatever you're doing to recruit, you must constantly evaluate and adjust your strategy. Some would say it's a full-time job, but I say it's 24 hours, 7-day-a-week job. That's why utilizing the right strategy online is a must. Don't be fooled by fancy promises or increased clicks. If you don't see qualified applicants increasing, your strategy isn't working, and something else must be done. Now you may be asking yourself, well, how do I start? How do I do all this? What else can you do to recruit? And if you're asking yourself that, it's a great place to be. Unfortunately, law enforcement is mired in status quo mindset, where we often refuse to admit that we could possibly do better. When it comes to recruiting, all of us can do better, and that includes myself. In my seminars, I routinely advise agencies to take a multi-pronged approach to recruiting. An important portion of that is finding the right online recruiting company, not an advertising company to supplement your efforts, right? But a recruiting company. You need a company that understands the profession, that will actually provide applicants, and they're committed to finding recruits for you rather than simply sending random people to your website. And it's no secret that I believe Safeguard Recruiting is the answer to the recruiting crisis in law enforcement. There's a lot of companies out there grabbing our money. I'm sure some are doing okay, but there's a lot of promises that aren't being met. And the crisis is continuing in our communities. And a few years ago, the owner of Safeguard Recruiting approached me after he read my book titled The Courageous Police Leader. And he attended a seminar where I spoke about recruiting. He came up to me and I was blown away. His company philosophy was exactly what I've been telling others, but until that day, I had not found anyone willing to put it all together. And he was convinced that he could do it. And I was so convinced after he did it, I asked him to help me spread this message of recruiting to you. And I have fully endorsed their efforts. And let me be clear, this isn't some paid advertisement, or I'm not getting paid anything. I simply believe they are going to make a difference. And if you followed me for the last 2 decades, either in my published writings or training seminars, you know I don't get behind anything unless it's absolutely a game changer. And Safeguard Recruiting is exactly that. If you don't believe me, reach out to them. They'll help you whether you have a budget or not, whether you're a client or not. They're going to help you. I wholeheartedly believe that they will change everything we thought we knew about law enforcement recruiting.